All right, now under normal circumstances, you would expect the prophecy against Jerusalem to be the end of this section. That tends to be how these things go. Remember how we read back in Amos? How Amos was giving this series of prophecies about the nations around Israel, and he was speaking to the northern kingdom, and he was gradually kind of working his way up to the northern kingdom and ended with the prophecy about the northern kingdom, and then started going on and on and on about the northern kingdom. That's how these things usually go. Okay, we've done all the other nations, now we're doing Jerusalem. It seems like that would be it. That's not, actually. In this case, we have another prophecy about some other kingdom after the one about Jerusalem. So here we are in Isaiah 23 with an oracle concerning Tyre. Tyre is one of the chief capitals or chief cities of the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were coastal people who lived along the Mediterranean coast, northwest edge of Israel, northwest. They were north of the Philistines, which occupied the coast to the south. They, like the Philistines, were not native to the area. They came from the Mediterranean Sea. They were sea peoples. They were merchant peoples, and they had trading outposts all around the Mediterranean Sea. In fact, when Isaiah in this book talks about the coastlands or the islands, he's talking about these outposts that are at the edges of the trading empire that Phoenicia, represented here by Tyre, one of its main cities, has established. And that's the farthest thing Isaiah knows. Like when Isaiah talks about the islands or the coastlands, however your Bible translates it, like he can't think of anything more distant than those distant cities at the edges of Phoenicia or Tyre's trading empire. Okay, so when he says the islands, he's talking about the most distant corners of the earth that he knows about. That's what Tyre is. And Tyre and Sidon are the two main cities of the Phoenicians, and that is where, now the Phoenicians by and large had pretty good relationship with Israel, at least more so than most of their other nations. We really never read about them fighting the Israelites throughout much of their history. David had a great relationship with the king of Israel. He got their king of Phoenicia. He got a lot of his stuff for building the temple from there. Solomon had a good relationship with the king of Phoenicia. So Phoenicia, by and large, were not hostile, for a good chunk of their history at least, were not hostile to Israel. In fact, Solomon entered into a trading alliance with the king of Phoenicia. Phoenicia is also where Jezebel came from, the wife of Ahab, and she brought Phoenicia's Baal worship as a daughter of the king and a high priestess. Of course, the king himself being the high priest and the daughter being the high priestess. Jezebel brought that Baal worship to Israel, which is where the problems in Israel really started to get out of hand in Ahab's day. And they did start fighting eventually, but they had, compared to Israel's other nations, they were on surprisingly good terms with Phoenicia for a long time. But that doesn't mean that Phoenicia are good guys or that they don't have their own problems, because they most certainly do. So here we are, an oracle concerning Tyre. Oh, by the way, Tyre is actually an island city. It's one of those cities that had a coast port, but it actually was mainly on an island that was off by itself in the Mediterranean Sea. Not too far away, but like it was one of those setups where you had like an island, and you had a coastal city, and then you had like an island that was kind of separated from the land by the water. That made it very difficult to siege. Siege warfare depended upon surrounding a city and cutting it off from help and from access to the outside. But when you have a city that's on an island, that's hard to do. And when the people of that city are better at water navigation and boats, craftsmen and all that than you're cutting them off from their supply routes, is very, 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 very difficult. So Tyre was a very difficult city to conquer. Several kings and empires would try to conquer Tyre without success. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, would lay siege to Tyre but would not be able to conquer it. It won't be until the days of Alexander the Great when Tyre finally falls. And Alexander the Great comes along in the 330s BC. That's 400 years from now. So Tyre, and what he does when he conquers Tyre, he has the idea to literally build a land bridge out there to get to the city. And that bridge is still there to this day. He actually permanently changed the geography of that area, because that land bridge that he built out there is still actually there to this day. And it completely changed the environment, geography in that area. So Tyre is not an island city any longer. It hasn't been for 2,300 years, or 2,400 years now, or whatever, 2,300 years. So, to 2,300 years, it has not been an island city since the days of Alexander the Great. But at this point in time, this is the 720s BC. This is 400 years before that. Tyre is still an island city and still has a reputation for being nearly impossible to conquer. And it is the center of a lot of Mediterranean sea trade. So it's a very, very, very important city, very, very, very significant city. An oracle concerning Tyre. Wail, O ships of Tarshish. Tarshish is one of Tyre's ports, believed to be in Spain. So if you can think, if you're an ancient person living in Israel or in that region of the world, you can't think of anything more distant than Spain, okay? It doesn't get any farther away from you than Spain. So wail, O ships of Tarshish, for Tyre is destroyed, and left without house or harbor. From the land of Cyprus, word has come to them. In Hebrew, the word Cyprus is Kittim, so I'm not sure what that is. Be silent, you people of the island. That'd be Tyre, the island that Tyre was on. And you merchants of Sidon. Sidon is the other main city in Phoenicia with Tyre, whom the seafarers have enriched. On the great waters came the grain of the Shihor. The harvest of the Nile was the revenue of Tyre. So Egypt traded with Tyre. And she became the marketplace of the nations. Be ashamed, O Sidon, and you, O fortress of the sea. For the sea, that'd be Tyre, of course. So for the sea has spoken. I have neither been in labor nor given birth. I have neither reared sons nor brought up daughters. When word comes to Egypt, they will be in anguish at the report from Tyre, because Egypt was a major trading partner with Tyre. Cross over to Tarshish. Wail, you people of the island. Is this your city of revelry? The old, old city whose feet had taken her to settle in far-off lands? That'd be the colonies that Phoenicia had established throughout the Mediterranean world. Who planned this against Tyre, the bestower of crowns, whose merchants are princes, whose traders are renowned in the earth? The Lord Almighty planned it, to bring low the pride of all glory, and to humble all who are renowned on the earth. So the reason why Tyre's prophecy is put last is because the achievement of taking Tyre would have just seemed impossible to anyone in Isaiah's day, because it never happened before. And it wouldn't happen completely for another 400 years. If God can bring down Tyre, he can bring down anybody. As far as Isaiah is concerned, and people of his day are concerned, if God can bring down Tyre, he can bring down anybody. If he can bring low the merchants and the haughty men of Tyre, he can bring low anybody. The Lord Almighty planned it, to bring low the pride of all glory, and to humble all who are renowned on the earth. Till your land as along the Nile, O daughter of Tarshish, for you no longer have a harbor. Now, I don't know exactly what that's referring to. I don't know if that's a literal prophecy. I mean, in a certain sense, it will become literal. Like I said, when Alexander the Great builds his causeway to Tyre, he will change the geography of that entire area. And one of the harbors, Tyre, the island of Tyre, I think had harbors on the north and south sides. And I think the south harbor, the one on the south side, was ruined because the currents of the water were permanently changed when Alexander built his causeway to get to the city. So one of the harbors was permanently destroyed. I don't know if that's what that's referring to, or if it's just a statement. I really don't know. But you no longer have a harbor. The Lord has stretched out his hand over the sea and made its kingdoms tremble. He has given an order concerning Phoenicia, that's the country of which Tyre is a major city, that her fortresses be destroyed. He said, no more of your reveling, O virgin daughter of Sidon. And Sidon is another major city along with Tyre, of Phoenicia, now crushed. Up, cross over to Cyprus. Even there you'll find no rest. Look at the land of the Babylonians, that people that is now of no account. By the time Isaiah is speaking this, the Babylonians probably have been conquered by the Assyrians. They're not a threat to anyone right now. But they will be. And in fact, 100 or so, or 100 plus years from now, Nebuchadnezzar is going to try to attack Tyre. He's not going to succeed in destroying it. Not all the way to the days of Alexander the Great. But Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, who will restore Babylon to its glory in 100 years or so, will attempt to take Tyre. He just won't succeed at it. The Assyrians have made Babylon a place for desert creatures. They raised up their siege towers, they stripped its fortresses bare, and turned it into a ruin. So that's already happened at the time Isaiah is speaking. Of course, Babylon will be rebuilt and it will go after Tyre in those days. Wail, you ships of Tarshish, your fortress is destroyed. At that time, Tyre will be forgotten for 70 years, the span of a king's life. That doesn't mean literally 70 years. For 7 is that magical number, the perfect complete number. So it's said here the span of a king's life. So a full lifetime, like a full complete period of time, a lifetime, it's going to be abandoned. It's going to be forgotten. But at the end of these 70 years, it will happen to Tyre as in the song of the prostitute. Take up a harp, walk through the city, O prostitute forgotten. Play the harp well. Sing many a songs that you'll be remembered. I guess that's something that they did back in those days, is they sang songs like that, I guess. At the end of 70 years, the Lord will deal with Tyre. She will return to her hire as a prostitute, and will ply her trade with all the kingdoms on the face of the earth. Yet her profit and her earnings will be set apart for the Lord. They will not be stored up or hoarded. Her profits will go to those who live before the Lord, for abundant food and fine clothes. And that is not literal. That does not mean that after 70 years, Tyre will be physically rebuilt and will start making money and giving it to the temple treasury in Jerusalem or something like that. It does not mean that. What that means is that remember how when we read back to the conquest, when Israel went into the land to take the land, and when they were told by God to go wage holy war on certain cities like Jericho or Ai, they were to burn everything up. When Saul was told to go destroy the Amalekites in the beginning of during his reign in 1 Samuel, he was told to destroy it all, burn it all up, take everything, all the people, all the animals, everything, and burn it up. And that was a way of turning it over to the Lord. These people, those things, their belongings, are under the ban. They were dedicated to destruction. You have the idea of setting apart for cleansing and holiness, and setting apart for destruction. The Israelites are said to be set apart for the God. They're going to be cleansed. They're going to be purified. They're consecrated, set apart for a special use to God. But the opposite is to be set apart for destruction and to be burned up to God. And that is literally like being put into an offering, made into an offering to God. So that's what this is referring to. The concept here is that Tyre is going to be burned up to God. Not that Tyre is going to rebuild itself as a city and start putting its funds in the temple treasury in Jerusalem or anything like that. It's saying that it's going to be devoted unto God, put under the ban of destruction, and everything it has will be given to God. But that is not a literal fulfillment, okay? And that's a very important thing to recognize.